they learn the rhythm of worship. The unstaffed nursery space next to their office will be open to parents who wish to give their child or children a break from the service. If you are new or would like to sign up for a weekly newsletter, please fill out a visitor's card and place it in the offering plate when it comes around. Visitors' cards are available at the greeters table. If you are participating from home, please follow the link for the virtual visitor card in the chat. No initial announcements? All right. We're going to start with the chalice lighting. The chalice is a symbol of a Unitarian Universalist faith. If you are zooming in and have a chalice, now is the moment to grab that and a match. As we light our chalice here on campus, please light yours as well. And if you like, you can use the chat to post the name of the street where your chalice was lit. This morning's chalice reading was written by the poet Adrienne Rich. My heart is moved by all I cannot save. So much has been destroyed. I have to cast my lot with those who, age after age, perversely and with no extraordinary power, reconstitute the world.
Good morning, one and all. Welcome to Westminster Unitarian Church. Such a joy to join Renee in extending Thanksgiving greetings to each of you today. And what a pleasure to share this time and space for common worship together this Sunday. I want to make sure that you know that on Thanksgiving this past week, each of you were as close to me as my own breath. And I raised up my voice to the eternal with a prayer of thanksgiving for who each of you are and for the ministry that you bring to life here in our religious community. Thank you for who you are and for who we are all together. And I hope that you felt your gratitude close and surrounding you as well during the Thanksgiving holiday. That feeling of gratitude, of appreciation for gifts received is the beginning of what makes a complicated holiday both beneficial and important. When we're engaged together in gratitude and memory, the past has the potential to not only be acknowledged, but even redeemed. The injuries and the losses become a focus of truth-telling and even of healing. And the world, for this very generation and for the children who are coming up, is released into the potential of building a new way. With that thought in mind, let's gather our voices together for our first hymn this morning. It's We Are Building a New Way, hymn number 1017. The lyrics will appear on the screen, or you can find them in your bulletin. So please rise in body or in spirit as you're able as we sing We Are Building a New Way.
Love is the spirit of this church, and service our mission. This is our great covenant, to dwell together in peace, to speak the truth in love, and to help one another. Please be seated.
Good morning, Jessica.
Cute. There we go. Hi, good morning. Thank you. Thank you, Jolanda. I just was telling Jolanda before we started, I have not heard a peep about any tech issues since she's joined us, and thank you. Blessings to you. I just wanted to take a moment to express my gratitude this morning. You know, Reverend Eric spoke so beautifully this morning about this past holiday, and I wanted to share with you one last little story about myself. This is my Nana here in this picture with me. This was a college portrait that I did many years ago. And I have it hanging here intentionally so that I can see her when I'm on Zoom. And it helped get me through the pandemic, let me tell you. But my Nana always said to me, gratitude and saying thank you doesn't hurt you and it doesn't cost you anything. So I just wanted to keep that in mind as you go through your time going forward, that it's just takes a moment to say thank you to somebody, to say thank you. So with that, I want to give just some gratitude from my heart. I have felt the welcome that you all provide at Westminster from the moment that I joined you. You are such a welcoming group of folks. And it does my heart good. You know, in the last 20 years that I've been a Unitarian Universalist, sometimes you walk into a UU space and it's not as welcoming as you had hoped, but your space has always been welcoming. Some of your congregants specifically have been super welcoming from the beginning. I want to thank the RE committee, because without the RE committee, we wouldn't have a wonderful program, and they have been so dedicated and devoted. I want to thank the rest of the staff. Nonetta, your musical ministry is amazing. Thank you so much for always playing such wonderfully beautiful hymns and pieces. And Liz Roper, who I've known for a long time. Liz and I were in the new DRE course together, fun fact. So we go way back. And to Reverend Eric, I just think your ministry is exactly what Westminster needs. And I'm so glad to see you there in the pulpit. And Marissa, always getting things done miraculously. I don't know how she does it all in the amount of hours that she does. And Beth Gibson has become a dear and cherished friend and has worked so tirelessly on that end of things when I can't be there in person. And so I just want to share one final piece about my gratitude. You know, in the spring, many of you know my father passed away suddenly, and I was there in Rhode Island when that happened. And I felt so held by this community. It was a Saturday night, and I was supposed to be with you all Sunday morning. Instead, we drove home. And the care and love that you all provided was just so, I'll never forget it. So thank you. I want to say thank you for that time in my life that was incredibly difficult. And since then, I've returned to see you all in person. And I have to say, Rhode Island is a welcoming place and such a place of respite. So I just want to remind you all to be grateful for each other there in your community, to be grateful for the wonderful state of Rhode Island and all it has to offer, and also for our larger UU community. Be grateful, because boy, it's been such a blessing. So with that, I return it back to you, Reverend Eric. Thank you.
Try that again. Have experienced a blessing together as well. And at that time, the congregation and Jessica entered into a covenant of relationship with each other as Jessica became the director of religious education here. And it is with sorrow today that we both honor Jessica's decision to take a different path forward, and that we honor Jessica's calling to interfaith chaplaincy, and hope and trust that the path that she follows in that direction will be a precious gift to those that she serves. And so today we formally release Jessica from our covenant with her as Director of Religious Education. And Jessica, I'd like to invite you to share a word or two with the congregation about that.
Thank you. I thank the Westminster Unitarian Church, its members and friends, for the love and kindness and support shown me during my tenure as your DRE. I'm grateful for the ways my leadership have been accepted. As I leave, I carry with me all that I have experienced with you.
And Jessica, we receive your thankfulness, and we accept that you now leave to follow your vocation along different pathways. We express our gratitude for your time among us. Your influence on our lives will not leave us at your departure, you can be sure.
Thank you. I accept your gratitude and good wishes for the path ahead, trusting that our time together and our parting are all part of this journey of faith.
And now, beloved congregation, do you, the members and friends of the Westminster Unitarian Church, release Jessica Hess from the duties of her position? If so, please respond, we do. And beloved congregation, do you offer your encouragement for her ministry ahead? And do you, Jessica, release this church from turning to you and depending on you?
I do.
Do you offer your encouragement for the continued religious education ministry here and on the relationships with another who will come to serve?
I do.
Well then, Jessica, we give thanks for the moments that we have shared with you in worship, in learning, in service. We pray that your journey will be safe and meaningful in all the days ahead. And will this grateful congregation in that spirit please respond with me to say, so may it be. So may it be. Indeed, may it be. And I'd like to invite Amy Abel to come forward to share a gift that the congregation has for Jessica.
Hello? Great. Jessica, you have given us many gifts, and so we have a few gifts to give to you. In gratitude for caring for the dedication of educating our children, you will always be in our hearts, and a heart goes to you. Can you see that? And in gratitude for your many trips to Rhode Island, we give you some Rhode Island swag to remember us by. And lastly, in gratitude for pursuing a new ministry of a chaplain, this blanket is to remind you to give self-care first. Wrap yourself in this blanket, and it's a hug from us.
Thank you, Amy and Linda. And Jessica, please carry all of these good wishes, these blessings, these well wishes in your heart today and always. We are grateful to you. All right, and at this time I'd like to invite Camila to come forward and lead us through the sharing of joys and sorrows. Camila.
And on behalf of the board, I'd also like to add my gratitude and congratulations to Jessica and best wishes on her journey forward. So, my name is Camila Bajakovsky, and along with Sue Bolins, Meg Carroll, and Rob DeLong, we are the lay pastoral care team. Reverend Eric is available for pastoral care as always, but if you need someone to just listen, to call and talk and without any advice, we are here for you to do that. And if you like to share a joy or sorrow on a future Sunday, you can either fill out a card when you come in, one of these forms that are in the basket on the side there, or you can use our new form that's on our website, okay? So do we have any on the website? No. Okay.
And let's join our hearts and minds together in a time of reflection and prayer. And I'd like to share with you these words by Atina O. Danner, Simple Parts of Faith. I believe in my breath and heartbeat, in the woven, grasping roots of trees. I may not see or hear how things move underneath. Still, I believe. I believe in my slow return to the earth in the simple quintessence of darkness, in the necessity of light and heat, in my oneness with water. I believe. Every swallow a prayer, every waking an answer, each moment we reach forward safely, an invocation. The simplest acts of faith. Because I believe in the power of words or intention expressed, of gratitude and creation, the unfurling of purposeful language might be a prayer or incantation. Every time I seek out more than what is already there, a prayer. A prayer. And with these beautiful words of poetry in our hearts, with an abiding spirit of thanksgiving for the many gifts received, earned, and impossible to earn, for the hope for tomorrow, for the loss that we bear, and for the days which are given to us to make the most of now and always, we share a brief moment of silence. And as we emerge from the unspoken time of silence, we lift our voices together and sing hymn number 1010, "Oh, We Give Thanks." The lyrics will appear on the screen. And please remain seated. Far away, for this time we share with love and care. Oh, we give thanks for this precious day. Again, oh, we give thanks for this precious day, for all gathered here and those far away, for this time we share with love and care. Oh, we give thanks for this precious day. And this morning, as our stewardship season kicks off, I'd like to ask Amy Ebel to please come forward and share a testimonial with us this morning. Amy?
Good morning, everyone. Fingers crossed. My name is Amy Abel, and it has been 25 years since I first walked into the doors of this church. I know. I can't believe that. I was then pregnant and grieving the loss of both parents. Fast forward to today, and it is my privilege to serve all of you and this congregation on the governing board of trustees. Westminster Unitarian Church represents for me a caring, supportive, and spiritual community that I could give dozens of personal examples of, but today just one. At the lowest point in my life, I had a toddler, an undiagnosed mental illness, and was hospitalized. In walked my minister, Reverend Fred Gillis. He felt like a lifeline to all the blessings I had in my life, but were unable to see in the confusion of a manic mind. I didn't know how Fred knew I was in Butler. I later suspected my personal angels, Tom and Margaret Townsend, who let it be known that my family needed help. A week later, more Westminster angels simply appeared at my doorstep, bringing food, providing childcare, and the greatest gift of their presence. This church has given so much to me, and it will be another 25 years before I am able to give back all that has been given to me. With my meager pledging history, and despite a very difficult economy, I have committed to increasing my pledge for 2023 by 20%. The next few years will be challenging ones. Our doors will need to be open wider, and there will be more changes as Westminster Unitarian Church prepares to move into its third century.
Thank you, Amy. UU churches are built on congregational polity, which means it is the people who create this place, sustain this place, and live the values of this place. One way we sustain this congregation and live our values is to take a morning offering, which we share with a different organization each month that goes to good works in the community. Westminster's Share the Plate for November is Edesia Nutrition. Founded in 2010, the nonprofit Edesia produces specialized foods that target different stages of malnutrition. They partner with humanitarian and aid organizations like UNICEF, WFP, and USAID, which distribute their products all over the world. Edesia is based in North Kingstown, Rhode Island, and to read more about Edesia or to make an online donation, visit the Westminster website. The other half of the offering goes to support all the good work of this congregation. We will now give and receive the morning offering with gratitude.
Many years ago, one of our Unitarian Universalist ministers of blessed memory, Reverend Nancy Schaefer, shared a brief reflection with our denomination that I've come to associate with Thanksgiving, and I'd like to share it with you this morning. Again, these words written by Reverend Nancy Schaefer. Once, he said an odd thing. Forgiving begins with someone sitting near. Later, he said, it isn't for the one who did the hurting. It's the other one who needs it. One day, without warning, he wept. I sat close. He told an old hurt in half sentences and single words, like stones he was coming upon, new like tree limbs broken, which he needed both arms for hauling aside. A half dozen times that summer we sat, he weeping, hauling out stones, gathering limbs, I near. The stones got smaller, his sentences longer. He said, it is the crying part I couldn't do by myself. And later he said, I feel cleaned out, with a wan smile. Still later, he said, I think I've done it. Made a kind of peace, he meant. And he slapped his palm hard against mine, laughed, and slapped his palm again. It was indeed a time of thanksgiving. I was lucky to grow up in the same part of the world that Harry Chapin made his home. Do you know who Harry Chapin is? Do people know who Harry Chapin is? Of course, Harry was a Grammy-winning singer-songwriter in the 1960s and 1970s. He sold more than 16 million records. His most famous song was, of course, The Cat's in the Cradle. But he was prolific as a singer of stories, a folk singer adored by many, befriended by and deeply admired by giants in the folk tradition like Harry Belafonte and Pete Seeger. Not only because of his music, but because he paired his gift, the gift that he shared with the world, with justice work. It seemed like this rich tradition of his forebearers that Harry had adopted became a part of him. He returned it to the world and became a master of the benefit concert. You couldn't show up to one of Harry's shows without canned goods for the hungry. And it seemed like the proceeds of all of his shows were always being given away to benefit a local charity. And Harry was especially focused on world hunger as it was experienced locally on Long Island and internationally. In fact, Harry posthumously received the Congressional Gold Medal for his humanitarian work. And this morning, I want to share a sample of Harry's voice with you. Jolanda's going to play it over the loudspeakers here, a sample of what Harry's activist heart led him to do.
Thanksgiving. Remember junior high school, elementary school, everybody bringing in cans for the hungry people? Remember that? Just imagine if somebody, when you were in 5th, 6th grade, if the principal had the gonads to say, on Monday, children, it was the most single wonderful outpouring of generosity that this school has ever seen. More cans of food, feeding 193 families, came to this school than ever before. We only have one problem, and we're going to deal with it this coming week. We're going to cancel our regular classes, and what we're going to talk about is, what are those people going to eat next week? Now, doesn't that sound like a sensible educational system that dealt with those kinds of questions?
Fans of Harry Chapin can easily picture him speaking in just that way. And it's important to say that though when I was a kid, his efforts weren't especially lauded, they were just normal Harry. It was just a part of what it was like to go to one of his shows. And boy, did we go. To be honest, we went so often that it became tiresome to go to his shows by the time I was 9 or 10 years old. But I remember the ones at the local high school auditorium most of all. They were so much fun. And I shared that story and the story that I'm sharing with you this morning with the previous church that I served in Franklin, Massachusetts, maybe in 2017. And I want to let you know that sharing this with them landed with another person in the congregation who also grew up on Long Island. And when I left that church a year ago, a very difficult time, this person who the story landed with remembered. And he gave me a gift. It's just a ticket stub from a Harry Chapin and Don McLean benefit concert at Huntington High School in Long Island. Ticket number 1045, $7 at the door, plus a can of food to donate. On the back it says, summer of 1976. I was there, perhaps you were too, Alec. Chances are that I was, with my sister and my parents, and chances are that as he typically did, Harry invited all of the kids up on the stage to sit around him for a part of the show. Alec might have been sitting there too. Needless to say, I cherish that memory today with Thanksgiving, as hazy and perhaps invented as the memory might be. And I note, in particular, that the gifts that come with ministry, and I mean your ministries, as much as any that I've been involved with, are wide-ranging. They are surprising over and over, and what can become a treasure worthy of thanksgiving never fails to surprise us. Even out of painful experiences like an unexpected loss, something meaningful can grow. Recognizing that, participating in that work, that is one way that we learn how to return thanks. And you know, I don't mean the physical gift at all. I mean, we return thanks by making a loss, a sorrow, a sadness, even grief into a source of power, into a source of meaning. Now, aside from the way that he lived and worked, Harry also grabbed the headlines and the collective consciousness of many through his death. He died young, in a traffic accident on the Long Island Expressway on just a regular day, driving an old beat-up Volkswagen, a regular car. He'd given so much away that he drove the same economy car as my dad. This superstar. A superstar for so many reasons. I remember the moment of silence that followed the announcement that he had died and the feeling of heartbreak. It was at a summer camp, a music camp I was attending that year, and it seemed like the whole camp and maybe all of Long Island had lost a friend and neighbor that day. It was 1981, and I was 11 years old. Now, I don't want to make more out of this than it deserves, and certainly not more than Harry Chapin would want, but it is Thanksgiving time, and I'm with those who believe that our country, that our people need this part of the year to be more than a launch of consumer overspending. America needs Thanksgiving, needs it to be worthy of the name, to be more even than a day to remember gratitude and privilege, as important as that is. America and all of us need it to be a time when we remember the work of returning thanks. Now, what is this returning thanks thing? No, it's not simply a prayer set around the table, and it's not just bringing canned food to a Harry Chapin concert or even as a donation to our wonderful sharing locker. Returning thanks is a way of life. It's a way of life that good religion fosters in people, a way of life that our tradition and many others call people to and has called people to over centuries, a way of life that looks beyond self and nearest relatives, that looks beyond those people with empathy and a sense of responsibility. It's a way of life that asks for charity and so much more. Let me share a bit more about how I understand that. Consider a lesson from way back, from St. Paul of Tarsus. Now, St. Paul's epistle to the Philippians is a letter to the people of Philippi who lived in what's now the northeastern part of Greece, near the border of what's now Bulgaria. And scholars agree that unlike most of the letters that are attributed to Paul, some of which are very hurtful, very damaging, even downright mean, that unlike those letters, this one was likely written by the Apostle Paul himself in the middle of the first century, sometime after he had visited the city which was the hometown, according to tradition, also of the gospel writer Luke, and where, with Silas, Paul caused a bit of a disturbance for the sake of justice and equity that led to he and Silas being flogged and imprisoned, but where he noted signs of the fruits of the Spirit were rising. In the 4th chapter of the epistle, Paul gets to the heart of the matter that I'm pointing to here. And it was quite a challenging admonition at that time as much as it is in ours, beginning with the 6th verse and then on to the 8th. He wrote, "Be careful for nothing, but in everything, by prayer and supplication with thanksgiving, let your requests be made known unto Adonai. Finally, siblings, whatsoever things are true, whatsoever things are honest, whatsoever things are just, whatsoever things are pure, whatsoever things are lovely, whatsoever things are of good report, if there be any virtue, and if there be any praise, think on these things." Again, this to a community in which he was condemned as a troublemaker, whipped, and imprisoned for setting an enslaved person free. He says there, to them, and by extension to each of us, be careful for nothing. And doesn't our current era, indeed this very week, ask exactly this of us? To find the true, the honest, the just, the pure, the lovely goodness that Thanksgiving is meant to point us toward, and to have the courage to live into it. So, aligned with Harry Chapin, we can return thanks by being sure that Thanksgiving Day isn't the end, it's the beginning, so that it's the beginning of a life of returning thanks. That invitation is to center the tradition beyond the accretions, beyond the turkey or vegan alternative, beyond the familiar, certainly beyond the colonial myth of America, but to dig into the tradition, this returning of thanks, this response to the feeling of gratitude. Can you go as far as Paul asks and offer supplication with thanksgiving? That means to know the fullness with heart and mind of what is most needed, and to give voice to it. And if you can, you are deep in the tradition now. G.K. Chesterton pointed to an important layer on top of this when he wrote, "If a thing is worth doing, it's worth doing badly." So failure and defeat are parts of our lives, necessary parts. And returning thanks is an act of risk. It's an act of unknowing, of uncertainty. In fact, it's only those who are willing to try and to lose that find out what returning thanks really means, because they discover, they come to know that a defeat for a transcendent purpose can be borne. St. Julian of Norwich, the anchorite who lived and wrote during another plague, another deadly illness in the 14th century, who chose solitary religious life in response to the trauma that surrounded her, yet came to a beautiful, peaceful trust, which he expressed with these words, "All shall be well, and all shall be well, and all manner of things shall be well." And this morning I witness to you that that is an example of returning thanks. Centuries later, Maya Angelou brought a similar trust to her deeply spiritual poetry, not minimizing or diminishing the traumas of life, of how evil so often reigns, but yet she advises in her poet's voice, "Let gratitude be the pillow upon which you kneel to say your nightly prayer, and let faith be the bridge you build to overcome evil and welcome good." Faith, that bridge for Maya Angelou, is a synonym for returning thanks. But Reverend Eric, what are you on about here? You're on and on about returning thanks. You're talking about being deep in the tradition. You're talking about failure. But how in the world is that going to feed the people next week? And I say, that's fair. I know that it is so hard. But please hear me when I say that returning thanks isn't about next week's food drive. It isn't about sponsoring families for the winter holidays or providing Stop and Shop cards to struggling families throughout the year. All of that matters. All of that is so very important. The hundreds of families that the metaphorical fifth grade class fed for Thanksgiving matters a great deal. And unleashing the power and influence of the nearly inexhaustible supply of resources so that the children in Somalia and Chad and Ethiopia aren't dying from starvation is terribly important and urgent. That is the global scale of the local work. But, and I know this may seem ridiculous to you, I'm asking you to be involved with something harder. I'm asking for what has to be done in order for a fair and just world where children don't die because food is hoarded by the few finally becomes possible. Another week or month or year of charitable giving, regardless of the latest holiday on the calendar, matters. It's important. It must be so, but it doesn't change the nature of injustice in the world. And so I'm asking you to consider returning thanks in such a way that even this in our broken world might change. And in order to do that, I'm asking you to be prepared to fail, to risk boldly, and to fail boldly if need be. That is what is deepest in the tradition of returning thanks. It is to risk boldly with empathy and compassion without any assurance, and harder still, without any attachment to precisely what or when the new day arrives. Indeed, hear and feel the gratitude. The giving of thanks is necessary for the returning of thanks. Deep in the tradition of returning thanks, we see more than the joy of having received. We proceed with courage, even through sadness and loss earned through empathy. We live into the tradition of returning thanks by choosing an unconventional act. This unconventional act doesn't have to be a response to famine. Your unconventional act could be anything, nor does it have to be immense in scale. Just hold on to Paul's admonition when you choose it and pursue it. Be careful for nothing. Actually, I won't go quite that far, and I'll chalk up Paul's exaggeration to a preacher's device. But hold on to the sentiment as you choose how to return thanks. Be sure it's aligned with love of God and neighbor, or whatever terminology you use for deep, transcendent relationship and compassion. But beyond that, take a risk. Perhaps throw some caution to the wind. Do the daring thing that brings your Thanksgiving supplication to life. If you have trouble choosing the unconventional act, here's a way toward it. Now that we've passed the Thanksgiving holiday, search your soul to identify where your fear is. Where is the fear that you wish you could address? Does it have something to do with the U.S. body politic? Does it have something to do with your child or your parents or your neighbor's child or their parents, or a child halfway around the world who you've never met but who you fear might be suffering? Does it have something to do with a secret that you've buried deep, or with a truth that you're trying to avoid? Is it a fear that you might grow in spirit? Well, this year, try facing it. Try facing it by returning thanks as a spiritual practice. That's what an unconventional act looks like in the spirit of Thanksgiving. It could be simple or complex. It might even follow in the wisdom of Robin Wall Kimmerer, whose 2015 book, Braiding Sweetgrass, is very resonant at this time. Robin Wall Kinnerer is a professor of Native Peoples and the Environment at the State University of New York at Syracuse, a member of the Citizen Potawatomi Nation, and a voice of what was and might yet be in the American story. She famously wrote these words. I'll share them with you. A sheaf of sweetgrass, bound at the end and divided into thirds, is ready to braid. In braiding sweetgrass so that it is smooth, glossy, and worthy of the gift, a certain amount of tension is needed. As any little girl with tight braids will tell you, you have to pull a bit. Of course, you can do it yourself by tying one end to a chair or by holding it in your teeth and braiding backwards away from yourself. But the sweetest way is to have someone else hold the end so that you pull gently against each other, all the while leaning in head to head, chatting and laughing, watching each other's hands, one holding steady while the other shifts the slim bundles over one another, each in turn. Linked by sweetgrass, there is reciprocity between you. Linked by sweetgrass, the holder as vital as the braider. The braid becomes finer and thinner as you near the end until you're braiding individual blades of grass, and then you tie it off. Will you hold the end of the bundle while I braid? Hands joined by grass? Can we bend our heads together and make a braid to honor the earth, and then I'll hold it for you while you braid too? Kimmerer is describing an unconventional act for our culture. She is describing a spiritual practice of remaking the world. She's pointing us toward returning thanks, whether we're the holder or the braider. Does it seem small to merely braid sweetgrass? Is there some risk in taking on relationship this way? Is there some fear? Is there uncertainty about the result? Would you shy away from it? Many would. Many do. But if your Thanksgiving reminded you of your privilege and gratitude, and if you let your eyes see what is broken and need of repair in our world, well, you might choose to return thanks. That's how it works. That's how we do it. Famous singer-songwriter, apostle, poet, parent, child, Westminsterite, or weaver of sweetgrass. So it has always been, and so it might even be today. May we find that it's a blessing. Amen. And my dear ones, we'll now join together in singing our closing hymn, which is 226, People Look East, a reminder that the season is changing, that joy and love and care are approaching, they ever do, and that we will be in that spirit as it arrives. So if you would please rise in body or in spirit as we join our voices together for singing hymn 226, People Look East. People look east, the time is near of the crowning of the year. Make your house fair as you are able, from the hearth and at the table. People look east and sing today, love the guest is on the way. People glad the earth is bare. One more seed is planted there. Give up your strength, the seed to nourish, that in course the flower may flourish. People look east and sing today. Love, the rose is on the way. Birds can watch the night is dim. One more light the bowl shall brim, shining beyond the frosty weather, bright as sun and moon together. People look east and sing today. Love, the star is on the way. And our closing words by Reverend Mark Bellatini. Go in peace. Live simply and gently at home in yourselves. Act justly. Speak justly. Remember the depth of your own compassion. Forget not your power in the days of your powerlessness. Do not desire to be wealthier than your peers and stint not your hand of charity. Practice forbearance. Speak the truth or speak not. Take care of yourselves as bodies, for you are a good gift. Crave peace for all people in the world, beginning with yourselves. And go as you go with the dream of that peace alive in your heart. Go in peace. And let's join in singing Carry the Flame as we extinguish the chalice this morning. Until we meet again.